Frederica. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks for having me. So, my name is Federica, and I'm based in Italy, in the Rome area. And I'm in my 40s, and hopefully starting my third career. So, I've been a musician before, I've been a researcher, and I just published a book. But I don't know that writer will be my third career. I'm just switching to a new job sector. But between let's say during COVID, I did publish my first novel in 3 languages, which allows me to be on your podcast because I wrote it in Italian, but it's also in English and Dutch. I have dealt with science communication, and I'm a podcaster myself. So I love walking in nature and YouTube binge watch stuff I'll never reveal. So
Love it. I would love if you could tell us what your book is about.
the book is called In the Heart of Tuscia. And Tuscia is the name of the region where I live right now in Italy, where I was not born in. I moved here after COVID. And the book is set here, and it's the story. You'll notice kind of an overlap with my life as a story of a young woman who moves to this land of Tuscia, and with the company of a man who lives here, she learns to know the territory because they go and visit different places every time, and also they grow closer together. So there is a friendship and then a sort of love story, and every chapter is called as a different place. And I guess what you should know, not knowing anything about Tuscia, is that it coincides with a province of the city of Viterbo, which is squeezed between Rome and Tuscany. And it's beautiful land, very, very green, with the main city at the center, Viterbo, but then all the rest around it. It's just small towns, oftentimes hilltop Etruscan towns. And so these two people, the main characters in the book, that every time go and visit a different place, do so in this kind of specific environment where in 30, 40 minutes drive, you're in a different town that, yeah, okay, is coherent with the history of the place, but also has its own history. So it's a different place with peculiar things to see, the specific beautiful things to see, a castle here and an old bridge there. And sometimes they go during the day, and sometimes they go during the night. So there's this leitmotif of exploring a territory together with someone like a Virgil that shows you around. But the voice that we hear throughout the book is that of the woman telling this story that's just happened. So it's fresh in her memory. And that's why she switches from the past tense to the present tense, because she falls into her memories and she relives them so vividly that it's as if she were there at that time. And also, she starts talking about the man as he, but then again, she feels like she's right there again as she tells the story. So she switches to saying you oftentimes.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
My life experience. I moved to the land of Tuscia during a special time, during COVID. So I was not really motivated nor free very much to explore the place. And it so happened that I did meet someone that more or less, took me around and made me see some places, just like I say in the book. And everybody asks if this is my story. And it's so hard to explain because yes, in good part it is, but on the other hand, no, it's not. And I'm not going to tell you what I did not put in the book because it's my life and it's my private story. But there is an overlap, and it's somehow, anyway, if I wanted to write my journal, I would not be ashamed. I would say this is my story. But this is an imagined, if you want. It got several awards, and one of these is a special award called Between Reality and Imagination. And I believe that that's the sweet spot of the book, because many things in the book actually happened, and some maybe not so much so. And then, like Laura Ingalls of Little House in the Prairie said when she was asked whether everything in her books were true, she said, "It's all true, but it's not the whole truth," right? So what inspired me to write this was actually what I had lived about in 2021, that has changed my life. In fact, there is a tattoo mentioned in the book that also became the cover picture of the book. And I do have that tattoo. So the overlap is real.
Love that. When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
Well, well, if I may, I would say that it's for everyone who is alive and searching, because it of maybe you can identify yourself with the main character, so the woman, a bit more than if you're a man. But actually what she asks herself, what she's confronted with, are existential questions. Where am I? This is a new place, you feel uprooted. And it's not a negative feeling, because it's just you just feel the uncertainty of life, but you also see the beauty of it, because every meeting, every new place that you happen to see by accident, everything is like a gift. And so this person, we mostly really hear her thoughts, and we only know the male character through her thoughts and what she reports that he said. And therefore, like I said, maybe if you share some the gender, age, and other things with the main protagonist, it will come easier. But I actually think that without overdoing it, because it's also a thin book, it's a quick read and it's very light, that it's very much existential. In fact, I said there's love in it, but I've always hated to call it a love novel, because that's not what it is. It's way more philosophical than love, but there's romance too.
Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
Well, by now I know, because I wrote other things. I know that writing should be the sort of, regular, well, should be, they say so, right? You cannot just make artistic work when you have the inspiration. You have to be consistent. And yet I find it extremely hard to begin something new if I don't have that inspiration. So whenever I have to write something new, not work on stuff I've written, then you have to be diligent about it, even if inspiration helps so much. How it happens is that I will process some things inside of myself, passively almost. They just work in the background. And at some point, it may take months, I will start having half sentences in my head, if not full sentences, and really feel that those are fixed. And I often write them down, because they really have to be like that, word by word. They work really well, and somehow the rest then comes. So there needs to be a time of processing until I say words come to me. That means that I will have this fixed sentences in my head that won't go away. In fact, I had the beginning of this book, which begins with I remember. I remember exactly where I was sitting when. That sentence, that full sentence, I had it in my head for weeks. And then actually the day I sat down, well, it's an interesting thing that something got canceled. I got let down. So it was a bit of a stressful time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to. So suddenly I had a whole free day. I was pissed about it because someone let me down. But then I thought, you know what? Today is the day maybe I can sit down, because now I have this time to start writing. And that day I sat down and I started writing, and I wrote the whole first chapter and set up I don't even say structure, I say itinerary for the rest of the book, because it is this sort of journey. And then I finished the first days of January. So, but this is how it happened. And I used pictures that I had actually taken in part by visiting the very places I talk about in the book for the first time. I was keeping the pictures in front of me and let the imagination go. But words really came very, and I don't know any other way to write. I cannot squeeze it out of me. I have to see it in front of my eyes and just describe it for you.
Love that. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
You think too much of me. No, I don't have a schedule. I'm a type of person that learned to have some sort of life work balance, but for the most part, I just fall into it. I'm obsessive. So when I'm working on that, I just have that one thought and I go and I go and I go until it's done. And I do agree with what, you know, there isn't a right or wrong way to write. Everybody has their own strategy, but I kind of agree with what many say, that is that you should just do the first draft as it comes as quickly as possible, and then you spend months working on it. In fact, yeah, it's a thin book. Again, I didn't write, War and Peace. But it took me from late November to the beginning of January, about 2 years ago. But then I reworked the text until May, June. It's not a full-time job, but it's so tricky, it's so delicate. You have to know when to stop editing, because then you start taking it too much apart. But anyway, yeah, I know schedule.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
Silence, mainly. Yeah.
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
Sweet stuff. Sweet stuff. When I'm creating, I let myself overindulge in sweet stuff, sugary stuff, because I just feel the brain is using up all of that energy. Yeah. Yeah. And if I sit long hours, I will not be able to eat a full meal or so. So I'll just keep, I guess, drinking sugary stuff. Yeah, it doesn't sound great.
Love it, love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
Oh boy, love real life stories, not necessarily biographies, mm, mm. Not, biography is very much what happened in my life. And of course, I editorialize what happened, but it's really stuff that would answer the question, what I understood in this life, sharing your experience going through life. I enjoy that. I actually started enjoying just stories, so I read them and I see how they're constructed. I've read, oh boy, I read in Italian a lot and in English. I did read the whole series of Little House in the Prairie. I mean, I'm not too good for any read. I'm not saying, I only read Dostoevsky and the classics. Absolutely, I'll read anything. I'll read anything. When I was younger, like teenager, I would literally read anything. Now I know that some stuff is not really worth my time, but I'm always curious because you never know. And behind, I mean, I like to think that whoever sat down and put the work to make that book believed in it. And so I value that. And every time I open a book and read the words there, it's like someone is talking to me. I imagine the person on the other side who imagined that story and picked exactly those words. So to me, every text has value. Of course, Dostoevsky is God. My other favorite writers would be Marguerite Yourcenar. and Simone de Beauvoir, of course, and some Italians, and Alexandra David Nail. I have oral books in French around here. Some essays I read. I love history books. I would like to read philosophy, but I always find it inaccessible to me. So I would watch, that's why I binge watch philosophy lectures on YouTube.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Um, yes. So nobody knows this, and now they will know that despite being a musician, a researcher, a globetrotter, my first desire was to be an author when I was 5 years old, before I learned how to write. So I cannot say that anyone inspired me to want to write, but for sure, then when I was in my early 20s, I really admired Simone de Beauvoir, and I found that every time I was reading her books, I was writing better. Just Simone de Beauvoir effect. Her language is so solid. Conversely, my, you would say, current favorite author, Marguerite Yourcenar, she writes so well that when I read her, she actually wants me to stop writing, because it's, how can I ever, dare put any word on paper? Like when I read her, I have to stop sometimes, put the book down. I look up at the sky and I say, how does this woman write? Is a miracle. So, you see, I love her, but the effect will be the opposite. Like you listen to a great singer and you just want to shut up. Same thing.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
An all-time favorite growing up. You know what? I used to read that series of Nancy Drew from elementary school on. So that's really growing up. And then in high school, I had a favorite, I guess, from the, I don't know, third year in high school. I don't know how you count it over there. I was about 15. I fell in love with this Italian author, Alessandro Baricco, which you may know because this they made a movie out of theater monologue he wrote called Ocean, The Pianist on the Ocean. Are you familiar with that? The Pianist on the Ocean?
I'm not.
I guess that's the name. With anyway, so you see, Italian reference doesn't fly, but it's been translated, so it's not niche. Someone may know Baricco, and that was it. But I was really reading everything. I am currently, I'm a parallel reader. Okay, so I have probably 40 books uh, open now, digitally on my iPad, on my computer, and on paper. I don't mind reading on any sort of device, and or paper or digital. And I just started a book called The Game of Life and How to Play It. Was passed to me by a friend just yesterday, and I'm telling you the author. I have it right here. The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn, and it was published in 1925, printed in the United States of America. So I'm really curious to read this because you see, I'm also hungry for. Uh, I mean, what really fascinates me. I enjoy the Harry Potter movies, but that's not my kind of literature. Um, I'm also crazy about a book that is called On Not Knowing How to Live. And this is not self-help books, not cheap philosophy. I just like the different experiences and accounts of people who have been here before us. We're confronted with similar or different situations, but we're all humans, and we have to find a map, a strategy to navigate life so that it's tolerable or pleasurable even, and how to be in the world. And so books like this, I don't expect 10 rules on what to be in the world. I really enjoyed the personal experience of, like I said, actually, if it was a thing, I wish that anyone were obliged, before they leave this world, when they check out, to write what I have learned during my time on earth. Like, what the hell have you learned? Have you learned anything? One thing that's for sure, because as I grow, it seems like nobody knows what we're doing here. Everybody tries a different thing. And I'm sort of obsessed with navigating this place better.
Love that. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Automatically grab it. Um, Not really. No, now these are like dirty little secrets. I guess that because I used to like certain artists when they, release these biographies that, God, you know what they are, they're just to sell. And maybe I still buy them, so I know I'm too ashamed to mention, but I have read several, memoirs. One of the best books, speaking of memoirs, that I read was by Maria Hornbaker in Minnesota. If you know her, she became popular with the memoir on anorexia, Wasted, because I had an eating disorder, and I enjoy reading books like that. Although maybe I read 5 in all my life, I never liked them. Having been through that, I always found them go a bit rhetorical and hers is raw. And I thought, yeah, exactly like that. Like that's talent and that's the real experience. So I read more stuff from her since then. I think we're connected on Facebook, so I'm a fan, definitely. Um, but I cannot answer your question better than that. I'm surrounded by books, but I didn't really prepare to mention names and give you a list. This is a great book that I got here. Maybe you're familiar with The Myth of Mental Illness by Thomas Zaz. If you just read the introduction to the book, you know everything you need to know. This is fascinating. So I will read stuff on mental health too, not because of my experience, because I dealt with wellness and mental health in academia as a researcher. So that's interesting. Here we have Tales, Encounters with the Devil. Oh, my favorite author is also Hermann Hesse, German author. And I'm reading now Il Gioco delle Perle di Vetro, which I have no idea. I almost read anything by him, including all the anthologies that they put together by taking bits and pieces from stuff he's written. And they put a wonderful title that I can never resist, because then he wrote so much. You never know if that's something he wrote or not. I always buy it. And then it's an anthology, a collection of pieces. But I still read it. I really like him. And Il Gioco delle Perle di Vetro, maybe the game of glass. I don't know. I can look it up. Hesse game. The glass bead or bad game. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Bead. Is the last full-length novel by German author Hermann Hesse. Pretty thick. I'm working on that also. And this author, Alexandra David Nail, she's, not niche, meaning those who know her adore her, or you don't know her. There's no in between. She wrote many books. I have them all in French because most were not translated to Italian, for example, but maybe English. She was an explorer in Asia over the turn of the 19th and 20th century as a woman. She was an opera singer before, born in Brussels, in Belgium, and not just passionate, but someone who studies Buddhism in Nepal and wrote about it so well. And so it's travel journals, something else I like to read super much, which is probably reflected in my book because it's an itinerary.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
With reading again, um, It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so hard because I wouldn't force anyone to read. Funny story, the man that I talk about in the book, was inspired by a real person, and we're friends, or we were. And at that time when I wrote the book, this is a person who doesn't read and told me so. Like, I don't even read instructions of stuff I buy, nothing. And I gifted him the copy of the book when I printed it, before I even thought of publishing it, because I didn't mean it for publication at first. And this is how I put it. I said, I know you don't read, but if a book like talked about you, would you? So pick a book that may interest you. And this is what I would say: try to sit down thinking that someone's talking to you. Because I believe that most people who don't like reading see this object, this thing, and the words on the page like a dead thing. It's so, 1900s. It doesn't move, it doesn't talk, it doesn't change. I'm guilty of that too. If I'm tired, many times it's easier to watch something than to read. Or I'm scrolling my phone in my bed for 1 hour and I'm awake. And then I say, well, I might just read 2 pages of this book. I read 2 lines and the eyes are tired. True, but sit quietly. I would say you have to understand that reading takes time. Reading takes time. So you have to sit down. And something else to probably, I would say it's nice if you keep in mind, is that reading is doing something. I guess people have these stacks of books that wait to be read because they're waiting for that gap in their schedule, that free moment that will casually come, and they say, when I have time, I read a book. No, you have to make the time. Reading is doing something. And I know it's not very popular. In the past few years, I have definitely stayed at home some days and said, no, sorry, I'm busy, cannot come. And I was at home reading the whole afternoon. It's doing something. It takes time. It takes so much time. Number one, because you want to sometimes stop, enjoy, reread, imagine better. You're not in a rush. And sometimes think about what you just read. There's a quote I love about philosopher Hobbes, I believe, that said he was very erudite, very educated, but that he would have not known anything more than any other gentleman that read the same books he did, had he not also reflected upon them. You see, that's very nice. And yeah, that it takes time, but that it is doing something. Now I'm reading. And the slower you read, actually, the more you enjoy. If you reread a paragraph with a description of something and you try to picture it in your mind, you will see that you can stop and do it more vividly. Again, Evans, yeah, there's so many ways to get pleasure out of this activity.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
I would really just say, get it out. Just write. Don't be too concerned about taking courses. By the way, I don't believe in courses to teach creative writing. It's all interesting and stimulating, but they don't. Yeah, let's just say I don't believe in that. So you just have to do it. It's true that to some people it comes more natural, easier. And I have read unpublished stuff from some of my friends, because when they knew that I was going to publish, they sent me all their unpublished works for sort of evaluation. For some reason, I changed in their view. And I always appreciated reading that stuff. Sometimes it's very authentic and genuine, but you can see the flaws. And it really got me thinking, because I thought, I don't know that I could help them correct these flaws. It's how you think, it's the words you pick. You don't change that. The only person that can refine that is you. And I'm not talking about like technical construction of plots and stuff that seems to be the craft of Netflix series. Sometimes you can really tell the technique and you say, this is perfect. I'm not really into that. I like uh, less, not, you see, you cannot say less structure or imperfection. I just don't care about a blueprint and what works and technique. So I really enjoyed the voice of someone writing. And I would say just get it out, because if you don't do it today and you think there's something you can do during this year to improve and start writing in a year from now, it's not going to be better. If anything, you'll get better by writing. So write it and then, put it on the side and write it again. Like, tell me again the same story over and over. Pretend that burnt. Tell me again. So rewrite from scratch the same scene, you know?
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
No, that I don't have this easy peasy life that they think I do, because I tend to be to have a very positive look on life. They would never imagine the demons I live with, and they don't pay rent.
Amazing. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
I am just so happy that I got interviewed about this topic today. And I feel that I would have done much better if I had had more names and more success stories to tell you, because books are a big part of my life. And maybe I'll say this in conclusion, whatever it may mean, to your audience as they try to build a picture of me in their minds, or if it resonates with them, books had such an important role in my life that I actually had to learn to give more importance to people and to living, you know. I really was the bookworm. I would stay at home. There is a little bit of escapism in that, in living the imagined life as opposed to a real life. That's how much books have meant for me. Um, now I am doing better, but they're always good friends, very much. And I don't know that there's any new technology that has replaced what a book can be, which is this self-contained, from cover to cover discourse of someone who cared enough to take the time to sit down and write this for us to read in the future across space and time.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
Sure. It's an easy answer. That is Google my name. So it's impossible. So I hope there will be links. It's impossible to spell my name correctly, Federica Bressan. The book is available on multiple websites, and it's also available in digital form, like an ebook. So wherever you are, you could have it instantly for cheaper than the hard copy. Distribution in the United States is still a problem. I just signed a deal with a Dutch publisher to republish the book, which exists already in Dutch, but issued there. So maybe we'll reach that market easier. If you're a publisher and you're listening to this in the United States, maybe reach out. So it's on different websites. So the best thing is to Google "In the Heart of Tuscia," Tuscia, CIA. It's also difficult, my name and the title. So I hope there will be links. Feel free to connect on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. The book has a website, federicabressan.com/Tuscia. Check the links again with all the press releases. There is a Google map with all the, the dots on the places mentioned in the book. So you can see exactly in Italy where this is. Like I said, it's a beautiful place between Rome and Tuscany, central Italy. There are pictures of book talks. There are more pictures from Tuscia, from the region. The books that are in the ebook has pictures in it. The hard copy doesn't. And I'm very easy to find. So reach out in any way, and I'd be happy to sign a copy and ship it to you if I can.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.